I'm never letting you go. Even if you run after this, I will chase you and I will follow you and I will be with you. This is I'll give you a choice, but it's one time and then you never get a choice again. You can't change your mind after this.
Romantic.
Yeah.
And she's like a werewolf, so she'll live forever.
Hi, welcome back to Weatherford Daze. My name's Rachel. This is Leia, my daughter.
Back again.
Yes, indeed. Jason is not here with us today. He is currently in Florida visiting his mother, which is really wonderful. Glad that he's getting to do that. But in the meantime, Leia agreed to be
filling in.
Yes,
I guess.
She agreed to be I'm filling in. Yeah, okay. So Leia is filling in, and last time Leia and I were together, we covered the fan favorite Hunger Games. This time we're going to talk about Twilight.
The infamous fan favorite.
The infamous fan favorite, exactly.
Fan
favorite.
I guess it's a fan favorite.
It is. There's a whole lot of people that still absolutely love Twilight. There's a lot of people that absolutely hate Twilight. I am one of those that is both.
Same.
And that's, again, one of those that, I love talking through and discussing those big name books and movies with my kids. And this was one of those that, I think you were really young when I first talked about Twilight and sparkly vampires, and your reaction was, that sounds stupid.
It sounded stupid until you started talking about everyone except Edward and Bella. You started talking about the family, and I was like, okay, actually,
the family's really fun.
Maybe it's not as stupid as I thought it was.
The concept is really fun. There's some problems, and that's kind of where we want to go, is the problematic aspects of the relationship.
So as funny as it is to watch, especially the movies, the books, they take themselves a little bit more seriously, though I still find them funny so far. But as funny as it is problematic.
And that's one of the things. I strongly believe that if you are reading, you are absorbing the worldviews and the value systems that are within books, even more so than you do with movies. I think that you sink into the thought process and the minds of these characters, and you understand on a deep level why they're doing what they're doing. Most of the time, that's really wonderful. And then you have a character like Bella. It's frustrating because these books are well written. They're very well written. Yet you find yourself following along with her and completely and totally understanding why she's doing what she's doing. You find yourself agreeing with and justifying her thought processes because you understand it so much. And that's where the pitfall is for me, is that it's great if you're following along with a character that's making rational and wise decisions. But when you have one like Bella, let's talk about it. Let's dig into it. I think that'll be fun. And, I'm sure there's thousands of other podcasts and channels that cover this. I have not watched them all. Yeah, we'll see where we fall on that. It'll be interesting. Maybe some people stumble across and
we'll see. I think to start, maybe saying our experience with the book, I guess because we both have the shared experience of the movie. You watched it before I did, obviously, but we watched it together for the first time. I had known the story of the movies before watching it, and getting to actually see it play out was quite interesting, because there's a lot of things you see on the surface, but then when you watch it, it's different. And compared to the book, also different. So there's a lot of different things that stand out to me.
Now, did you read the book before you watched the movie with me? Or did
No.
we
I
watch the movie
watched the movie
first? Okay.
first. I'm actually, I hate to admit this.
You haven't finished the book yet.
No.
Okay.
I started listening to it on a road trip because I was reading through it and then I was like, well, I'm going on a road trip. I'm going to listen to it. And I started falling asleep. And I woke up and suddenly we were talking about Jacob and I was like, how did he get here? And I haven't finished because I bounce around book to book. I think I read Frankenstein next. So unfortunately I don't have a lot of experience with the book, but I did notice quite a lot of things that are not in the movie. Bella is a lot more sarcastic
Mm-hmm.
and she tends to have her head more on her shoulders, at least to start. At least
Yeah.
from the perspective of
I
how it's
think
being told, you go, okay, yeah.
most people that only watch the movies really don't understand at all why people actually understand why Bella falls in
Yeah.
love with Edward and all of that. They just see the toxic. It's a lot easier to see
Mm-hmm.
it when you just watch the movies. When you read the books, that's when you're really getting into her head and understanding.
Yeah. And I don't think this is the actor's fault at all. But the way that they were directed, it's like Edward with like, and Bella with the, it it makes it more funny, and you kind of can point at it and go, haha, you guys are idiots. But actually getting into the viewpoint and being able to understand, you get to empathize. But there is, I guess, there's a goodness and a danger to it.
Mhm. Well, I think that the first thing that I have a problem with is in the first book.
Mhm.
And that is the moment that she actually decides, I'm in love and that's it. It's done.
What did she say? I'm
She,
like irrevocably in love with him.
yes, completely and irrevocably in love. And
It's a fun word.
that
Irrevocably.
is, that's one of those that it's like you're looking at, to me, with relationships, one of the biggest red flags, and this genre in particular has, you see it because Twilight didn't just end with Twilight. It started an entire kind of love affair. Well, it popularized. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
start, but it popularized the vampires, the werewolves. You
The whole
got
paranormal
more and
romance.
more of the paranormal
Oh yeah.
that became more popular. You see it happening over and over again, not even to the extreme of the 50 Shades of Grey, but you see this kind of love affair. When you have the paranormal, you have a power imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
That is it should be a red flag in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's one of those that when you sink into fantasy, women especially love to fantasize about a man who is so much stronger, so much older, so much wiser, so much more powerful
And
than she is.
dangerous.
And yeah,
There's a weird draw to
to
danger.
danger. When you look at real life, there is something to be said about we like strong men as women. We like men who are able to make decisions and have the ability to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
We love when men are, not only strong physically, but they're strong emotionally. When they
Mm-hmm.
have that wisdom, we look at it as like, oh, he's like 100 years older than she is. But when somebody is just so much smarter and wiser than we are,
Mm-hmm.
and when we as women, the thing that Bella kept on saying was, why are you in love with me?
Mm-hmm. That
And
kind of
she
putting
didn't
yourself down.
understand what he saw in her because she had him so high up on a pedestal.
And she
And
thought of herself as like this plain, like nerdy, maybe not
yeah,
nerdy, but she was more,
and
I don't have friends, I'm gonna be in my books kind of. a little pick me, but
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a lot more toxic if he had actually come back with, "Yeah, you're just so much less, but I've picked you." But, he saw something in her that he
mhm,
valued. I think, well, most of the time in books, it's always she's smarter than she thinks, or she's more beautiful than she thinks,
mhm,
or she's personality, or just he sees the character traits that he can fall in love with, the loyalty, whatever it
mhm.
is, that most of the time, though, I feel like she's just smarter than everybody
Yeah.
else, and I feel like it's almost intentional by authors. I don't know if authors just think that they're smarter than everybody else, or if they have this idea that people who are reading are just smarter. So
Like the
everybody who's reading this book puts himself in that character's place as being the one who maybe is awkward, or,
mhm,
not as pretty, but oh, they're readers and they're smart. And, we go, there's this draw of going, if they could see something in this character, then somebody in real life is going to
mhm.
see and be able to value and appreciate me. So
I'm
we very
on
much identify with that as readers.
I think I'm also on the side as someone who is an aspiring author and who's been writing for much of her life. The whole kind of putting yourself into the character, and there's also it can be really easy, especially once you've published a book, to kind of have a little bit of an arrogance of going, well, I researched so much and I worked so hard and I made this masterpiece, and you kind of end up going, well, maybe I'm not as pretty, but I'm super duper smart. So,
Right. There's a draw to that.
hmm
And I mean,
very much a reader thing
yeah,
too,
we
reader writer.
want to be able to feel like and identify with there's things about that character that translate over to us. That's
Hmm.
perfectly normal. There's nothing, necessarily
Yeah.
wrong with that. When you have a power imbalance,
Hmm.
like I was talking about, there's always going to be certain things that somebody is stronger in one way, and that you have different strengths and weaknesses that balance each other out. And
Hmm.
that's good and healthy. When you have somebody so far up on a pedestal that you can't see their weaknesses,
Hmm.
there's a problem with that.
Just reminding me of one of my favorite books at the moment, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. They start out, you get the sense that they like each other, but they're also extremely annoyed with each other. One of them is a professor of fairy zoology, biology study, I guess, and the other is a literal fairy king, but they both balance each other out really well. But they definitely don't put each other up on a pedestal. They both kind of go, oh, yeah, she's an old grump who would much rather be in her books than be romanced. And the other is like, he's annoying and he keeps like impressing people with very, very false scientific documents. He needs to stop. With Twilight, it's a lot less balanced. It's more just,
Mhm. And I mean, the thing
and
is,
also
is that
they don't believe each other are balanced either.
no, they don't. They both put each other up on pedestals. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you do see character growth throughout the four
Oh
books.
yeah, definitely towards the end.
And you have, by the end, I feel like you have a pretty good resolution with Twilight. It's
Yeah.
the only one that really could have happened, because she does get changed into a vampire
Mm-hmm.
and she has unique giftings of her own. She feels like this is what she was always meant to be.
Yeah.
She has her this is what
It's
it
kind of
should
from the
have
beginning
been.
of when she figures out about vampires. She's like, oh yeah, I want to be that. And
Yeah.
Edward's like, no, I'm not gonna do that to you. She's like, but I want to be a vampire.
Yeah. And yet, if you take that to real life, where you have a power imbalance,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some aspects of it you can't really completely translate to real life, right? Because it's
Yep.
such a major power imbalance that you're not going to actually have that in real life.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing, in fantasy it can be resolved. The power imbalances that happen
Mm-hmm.
real in reality tend to be intelligence levels, talent. Intelligence is a big one. It's one that I've seen, personally. Just if somebody is so much more intelligent than the person that they're falling in love with, you have one of them that's always going to feel like they're just smarter and the other one's just not. And it creates this power dynamic that's out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good, it's not a healthy thing.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes, I will say that sometimes aren't necessarily going to gain intelligence, but you can value the wisdom that your partner has. That,
Mm-hmm.
rather than going, well, they may not be as quick to pick up things, but they've got this intelligence in other ways. If you can
Mm-hmm.
find that way to equalize, then it can work out fine.
Also comparing yourself to your partner, constantly like going, oh, they're so much better at this than I
Mhm.
am, and like I'm a burden on them, or I don't deserve them. Just having that mindset, because a lot of that tends to stem from insecurity. And
Mhm.
sometimes there is a legit, like, there is that difference of, there is that power balance, but sometimes it's kind of self-imposed too, is you
It can
put
be.
yourself
Mhm.
down and you don't allow yourself to be the better person that could meet them.
And most of the time, it is just a perception thing. It's not seeing ourselves for who we really are.
Hmm.
Or it's just a time thing that we grow and we change as human beings. We can gain in wisdom and maturity. And, a lot of those things that may not be equal at the start of the relationship do equalize if the relationship lasts over a course of years.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's one aspect of it. The thing is, though, that all of the things that we kind of get drawn into, of there's this entire genre of
Hmm.
books that has this type of trope,
Hmm.
and people love them. People like to read them, and most of them you're going to have some kind of balance of equalizer. Most of them don't end up going into a toxic place.
Yeah.
Some of them do. So you've got this power imbalance thing that happens in Twilight. You also have a codependency thing
Hmm.
that's really, really toxic. And that's the second big thing in Twilight that I think most people see as problematic. There's some good stuff that does happen, that they balance each other out. Bella does gain a voice. She gains the ability to actually speak up and speak her mind to
Yeah.
Edward, and that confidence I think was really necessary for them to have a chance of having a good relationship.
Oh
The
yeah.
whole situation where she is pregnant and she stands up to Edward for the first time and
Hmm.
Edward can't stand it. Where he's there like, you made the choice without me. It's funny to me because it's like, yeah, see how that feels, Edward? Because you were the first one
Yeah.
that did that. You were the one that made the choice without Bella,
Hmm.
where she went, I want to become a vampire. I want to stay with you forever. And you decided you're not good with me. I'm not good for you. So I'm going to take myself out of your life.
Hmm.
And it's kind of one of those where it's like the
Kind of the
way
two
that neither one of
sides.
them handled that, though. Like,
Hmm.
Edward handles it better than Bella does, admittedly.
Yeah, I'd say in the second movie for sure, because if
The
you are not comfortable, if you have those two different wants and desires, and it's like, it's
Mhm,
understandable. For Edward, being turned into a vampire is literally the worst thing you could do to a person.
mhm.
And his values of not wanting to like compromise her, it is honorable. But for Bella, she this is something that she wants. And he is making those decisions about what she gets to do with her life. And
Well, let's talk about that for a minute.
yeah.
This from an outside standpoint, though, because what does that do to a reader, to a young girl,
Mm.
to be so immersed in Bella's head, so completely and totally understanding how irrevocably Bella is in love with Edward, that he's left her, you see and you understand how she can't get over Edward
Mm-hmm.
leaving her.
Just the
Her
depression for
complete
months.
shutdown, the depression, the becoming an adrenaline junkie,
Mm-hmm.
all of the steps that she went to. We understand that as the reader.
Mm-hmm.
We see it as inevitable. We don't really see that she could do anything else feeling the way that she does.
Yeah.
But the way that that presents love
Mm-hmm.
as being something that we either are in love or we aren't in love, and we don't have any control over that,
Mm-hmm.
I think is dangerous.
It is a difficult situation, and you know,
Why do we present love as being that way, as being something so outside of our control that we fall
it's
and
yeah.
we can't control it?
That's the thing that
It's
people.
overwhelming. It overwhelms
Yeah.
us to the point of our head no longer has any part in it. All that we can do is follow our heart.
Like maybe I've had an easier time of this, but it's a difficult thing. But at the same time, love is a choice,
Mhm.
and I was always weird. I kind of overthought everything. So if I was ever going, do I like this person? I would have to think through it. I wouldn't just fall in love. But it's still, you can have the feeling of love, but that is a separate thing from what actual love is. Love is a choice, and love is not dependent on our happiness. It's dependent on the good, or it's for the good of the other person. And it's more of an action of.
I think it romanticizes love in a dangerous way.
Mhm.
It makes people think that your feelings are more important than your head. We have to have both. We have to have both. You cannot just turn your brain off and rely completely and totally on your feelings. And
Mhm.
let's take this to the Bible.
Yeah.
Our hearts are deceitful and desperately wicked.
Mhm.
When we are relying so much on our hearts to tell us who we are and what we should do and where we should go, we see all the time, follow your heart. Your heart won't lead you wrong. If you just follow your heart, you won't go wrong. No. Our hearts are confused. We
Mhm.
need to lead our hearts with our heads. And
And guard them and protect
guard,
them.
exactly.
Because if you leave your heart just vulnerable and then you get a Davy Jones situation, you put it in a chest and you lock it out, throw it to sea, and then it's just anyone who wants to find it can stab it.
Perfect. There is so much wisdom in knowing that our hearts are not the be all end all. There is something to be said for following your heart in certain circumstances, but your heart should always be led by your head, and your
Mhm.
head should always be grounded in God's truth,
Mhm.
because our heads can get lost, and when our heads get lost, our hearts get lost.
Mhm.
So when Bella loses her heart, she says, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm
Mhm.
in love, doesn't matter. And her head is seeing Jacob as an acceptable,
Yeah.
thing. And it's kind of one of those where you get the whole love triangle in the third one. And
I hate love
yeah,
triangles.
her going, it's always been Edward. It will only be ever be Edward.
Mhm.
we see that and go, oh, that's so wonderful. It's so sweet. It's true love. Sure, it's great when it works out.
Mhm.
It doesn't always. We have to be careful when we're presenting stories and tales not to overly romanticize that thought. Love is wonderful. Love is powerful. Love
Mhm.
is strong. Love can conquer so many obstacles and traumas. You know, when you make that commitment and you choose
Mhm.
to love someone through thick and thin, through all of the struggles and the traumas of life, and they choose you, and you choose to change together and grow
It's
together. And
almost as if it's a choice and a commitment, and
Mhm.
it's not guarded by feelings, because there are times when you're not gonna like the people that you marry or the people
Yeah.
that you're family with. They have the whole thing of, I love you, but I don't like you. And that's kind of a cold thing, but it's really a choice,
Mhm.
and it's a discipline.
It's a choice and it's beautiful. There's a lot that's good about it, but I guess ultimately you just have to have your head and your heart in balance.
Hmm.
You need to be careful, and we need to be able to see those red flags.
Also, not giving your heart away too soon and
Mhm.
knowing where to place it, because it hurts when something doesn't work out, and when someone you thought was going to be the one leaves or breaks your heart or whatever. But it doesn't hurt quite as much when you've put your heart with God,
Mhm.
because He is not going to let you down. Not to accidentally quote this song.
Never gonna give you up.
Gonna let you down. Yep.
Oh, you've been rickrolled. Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
There was another book I wanted to talk about, and I'm not going to go into the name of this one because I'm not recommending it.
Mm.
So, but I do want to kind of talk about, because we mentioned that, Twilight is just kind of the beginning of where this
Mhm.
genre goes, and I've read a lot of really good books. It's one of those that I had the thought when I was thinking about the whole paranormal vampires and Twilight, or vampires and werewolves and
Mhm.
fae and that kind of thing. One of the things that type of story tends to do is gives people a good vehicle, a good way to work out and explore trauma.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um, and the story that I was telling you about,
Yeah.
that was I was kind of contrasting with Twilight, because there's some things that Twilight does well. There's some ways that
Yeah.
she kind of brings it back. There's some healthy aspects to that relationship. It's not
It's
like
almost surprising when you see and you hear all the negative stuff to go, which movie were we surprised I was surprised at. There was healthy communication in the Twilight series.
Eclipse,
Yeah, in
or no,
Eclipse,
New Moon.
New Moon,
New Moon.
they were actually having a whole lot of healthy uh, conversation and communicating,
Hmm.
and it was it shocked me. I was like, whoa, they're actually having healthy communication. And you see it more on two,
Yeah.
kind of after they get through the whole like pregnancy thing and have a baby, and finally like she's a vampire, and they have that ability to actually go, okay, we're on the same page, we both have what we want, we're equal,
Hmm.
and now we're actually going to start listening to each other. But you were talking to me about this one,
Yeah.
and I you remember my reaction? It was, oh, this makes Twilight seem like a like a ideal couple, like
Exactly.
perfect book.
And this one is one of those that it's a werewolf story. It surprised me because this one was supposed to be clean, no spice. The reading
Mm-hmm.
level was age 13 to 18. Yeah, it really doesn't quite, I would not recommend it, but it is the story of a woman rather. She's in her mid 30s during the story, but you find out that when she was a young woman, probably 18, early 20s, somewhere in there, she was kidnapped, held in a cage for a year, during which she was abused. She was in all the ways she was experimented on, just completely traumatized. After a year, she was rescued and she decided to just try and focus on the present. She didn't deal with the trauma and she didn't really talk about it, but she met a man. She fell in love. They got married. Everything's going fine for a few years until she finds out, well, for one thing, he shaves for an event, and something about his face reminds her of her captor. Then she finds out that her husband has a room full of cages. Freaks her out. She runs. She's pregnant at the time that she doesn't tell her husband that she's pregnant. She runs and just absolutely associates him as just obviously, he's psychotic. She was completely mistaken about who she thought he was, paints him in the worst possible light in view of her trauma. It's understandable that that's the reaction that she has. She has her daughter. She raises her completely on her own. Her daughter is very sickly, mystery illness. She's constantly taking her to doctors. She's struggling financially to be able to afford doctors and everything for her daughter. Can't figure out what's going on with her. When the daughter's about 12, which is when the story starts, the daughter actually ends up kind of starting to partially shift into a werewolf. So she's having these fevers and then she goes furry and her ears start pointing and the mom goes, okay, well, I never knew that werewolves were a thing, but this makes me just decide I need to go and question my husband and see why on earth our daughter is turning into a werewolf. So,
Oh.
yeah. So she tracks her husband down with her daughter. You find out that, her husband is werewolf alpha. The reason why he had the cages is because as the werewolf alpha, sometimes the newly changing werewolves have a difficult time transitioning. They need to be caged for their own safety and, for the safety of the general public. And that's his responsibility to do as the alpha. He doesn't torture people or anything. He's actually a good guy. And yet, when the main character gets bitten by her daughter at one point before she goes to see her husband, apparently, we don't find out for a while, but that infected her, but not enough that it would have actually changed her. It would have just killed her.
Sort of like the vampire
right
thing.
In this werewolf, I guess, what do you call it? The way that the magic works, the change is very
magical floor plan.
Right. Because, whenever you have this type of fantasy thing, the author kind of makes up their own rules a lot of
The
times.
rule Bible.
Exactly.
That's
just
a better
the rule Bible. Yeah, exactly. Just like, Twilight has sparkly vegan vampires, and this one, so apparently the werewolf that this specific type of werewolf that the dad wasn't supposed to be able to have children. He told his wife that she didn't need to worry about it, that they couldn't have children, and then she ends up pregnant and she resents him for that too, because she didn't actually choose to be pregnant. They didn't choose to have a baby at that time.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that she's carrying against him. But he didn't think that he was able to have a baby. Come to find out, it was part of the experimentation that had happened on her by her previous captor, who, surprise, surprise, was also a werewolf. Find out that he was the beta to the alpha, her husband, many, many years ago, because this guy is like centuries old. They broke off, and this guy, the bad guy that captured her, has been doing his own thing. The experimentation that he did on her actually ended up making her able to have the werewolf baby that she has, that is her daughter, that infected her. And then the husband, which, backtracking here a little bit, sorry, this is getting convoluted, but he realizes the second he sees her, that she comes into his shop, that she is infected, but not enough. And he makes the decision to save her by biting her and giving him more of his toxin, because he's so old and strong and ancient that he'll be able to actually infect her to the point where she'll turn rather than just die.
It's like the opposite to the Twilight problem. It's the she
Right.
didn't want to be a werewolf and she didn't want to have a baby.
She didn't choose it. She's terrified of cages. She's terrified of having her choices taken away from her. And then he takes away her choice by infecting her even more so, because the only other outcome at that point would have been her death. And he actually tells her later on, because she doesn't know that he's done this, because apparently he can't tell her because of the process of changing into a werewolf. And he creates a whole fake situation where he says that she has to fight for her daughter's place in the pack. And so she has to have a fight every single night, which actually she's a fighter. That's a hobby of hers that she enjoys and she always has since she was a kid, which apparently is one of the reasons why she got picked to be kidnapped in the first place by the other werewolf dude. Because fighters are really attractive to werewolves.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
So you've got all of this that's kind of going on, and she has to fight for her daughter because her daughter's not strong enough to fight for her own place in the pack. But then turns out that what actually needed to happen was that she needed to get destroyed, because, see, the werewolves have the magical ability to heal, and she doesn't because she's not a werewolf. And so she gets beaten every night. Her opponent heals, and she just has to suffer and then come back the next night and get beaten even more.
That's like the most frustrating thing in video games.
And she has to choose to enter a cage to do this
fight.
So she's facing, she's fighting the bad guy feeling, but she's also facing her fears, freaking out over the fact that she has to go into a cage willingly to fight for her daughter. So it's all of this psychological stuff going on, and there's a whole lot of manipulation, and just she's not even realizing what she's doing, and he's manipulating the whole situation. But she has to be broken down enough. She has to be completely broken so that she won't fight her wolf and will actually be able to transition into a werewolf instead of just die. Because even after he infects her, she still could die because she's such a strong fighter that she's going to fight the change. Make that make sense. Any of it.
It kind of sounds like someone processing.
And in all of this, it's a whole lot of processing of trauma.
Yeah, which it's...
And yet the one thing, at the very end, after she's changed, her daughter is changed, they fight the bad guy. You see this alpha, her husband, who's going, I'm going to allow you, even now, after I've kind of forced you into being a werewolf, I'm not going to force you to be with me. Because that's the choice he can give her, right? So you're chained to the life of a werewolf, but you're not actually chained to being with me. And yet he tells her, if you actually choose to be with me, then I'm never going to let you go. So be sure that this is the choice that you want. Because if you choose this, I'm never letting you go. Even if you run after this, I will chase you and I will follow you and I will be with you. So he's basically saying, this is a one one-time choice. I'll give you a choice, but it's one time, and then you never get a choice again. You can't change your mind after this.
Romantic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she's like a werewolf, so she'll live forever.
Right.
At least a long time. I don't.
Yeah, no,
They're immortal?
They can be killed, but they're immortal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like elves.
Like elves or fae or, all of those tend to be. Vampires. Yeah. All of those, which I feel like is a big draw to why people love these stories, is the whole immortality bit. But that's another
that's another
topic.
subject. I could talk for a while about that one.
The reason why she ends up choosing him, even though she's scared, she hasn't fully processed all of her trauma, even though a lot of processing has happened, admittedly, is that she loves him. Not just loves, there's a lust aspect in this book that, is 13 to 18.
I was about to say, it's like,
reading level.
That's
but
a subject you should be letting
she wants
13-year-olds
this
read.
man. She can't not have this man. And she chooses to stay with him and to be with him because, oh, yes, we've seen that he's actually good. He's not evil like she thought he was. So we've compared and contrasted, and we've actually seen that, oh yeah, he's a good man, even though, he did some bad things. He did the bad things for good reasons, right? So that excuses them.
That's the definition of a hero.
But reality is that she doesn't actually come to that conclusion and fully reconcile. She's still upset about the way that he did it.
Yeah.
But she chooses to be with him because of love/lust. And we're all supposed to feel like this is okay. Because we're in her head and we see how much she loves this man. And she's never felt like this about anyone before. She's never, she's been apart from him for 12 years and she's never found anyone else that she actually just was consumed by.
Has she processed what she's been through? Has she worked on herself to be healthy before making decisions? Because when you're making decisions with a traumatized
you kind of hope so.
brain.
And yet she's been through a level of trauma, and even the whole having to be completely broken before changing into a werewolf is a level of trauma that, and you see the way that she reacts afterwards. She really hasn't processed all of this. She's not in a healthy place. And yet she makes eternity decisions about who she's going to be with based on her feelings. It really is presented as we all should just understand this and how overwhelming love is. Celebrate that she gets her happily ever after. And it's toxic. It's really toxic. And
know that it's toxic.
And yet so many people I have had friends who loved romance stories, who followed this same kind of pattern in their lives of throwing away all logic and sense for love. And it's not even, I feel like, a true love. I feel like it's just a concept of love. It's a romanticized version of love. It's this overwhelming story that we feel like should be real, and then it falls apart because that is a story. It's
almost kind of why those people tend to look towards those toxic, domineering, strong figures, is because you're wanting them to fix something in you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's based off of a trauma response. It's based off of a need. And you shouldn't ever need another human being. It's like you need your parents when you're growing up, but you should not need the person that you love.
It really is one of those that we humans, we take the most beautiful things in this world and we get them so convoluted. Love really is the most powerful force in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because God is love. The ultimate love story is that God loved us so much that he sent his son die for us so that we could have, guess what? Eternal life. That eternal life that we look for in these stories, and we go, you know what? That's the epitome. God is giving that to us. Not a physical life here on earth, but an eternal life in heaven. Our souls are eternal. And
he doesn't need us. We don't exist to serve, we have a purpose, sure, but we don't exist to serve a necessary purpose in the universe, which isn't to say, it's not to be like nihilistic, but we exist as a testament of love and to prove the glory of God. He is a creator and he created something wonderful and beautiful, and existing is a worship. The creation, prove the glory of the creator, and that's what love should be. It's why the love of a parent, the love of a parent should be. You don't have a kid because you need a kid. Parents sometimes joke, oh yeah, we had you because we need people to clean the house. Like that's a joke, but sometimes it is true. It shouldn't be. You had a kid because of love, and you do not need the kid. The kid doesn't owe you anything. It should always be out of love and not out of a complete 100% like kill yourself type of selfless love, but a selfless love.
And even what we humans see as the most pure form of human love falls short.
Oh yeah.
To how pure and wonderful his love is for us. Everything that we try is just, it's an echo of his love. And yet, oh, how he redeems our love stories. We're gonna mess him up. There's gonna be those times when we just, no matter how much I love my husband, I can't love him well enough. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to make mistakes.
It's a journey of learning to love. We never stop growing. You become an adult, and you don't know everything. As a kid, you learn how to be a human, and then you spend the rest of your adult life learning how to be not only a person, just in general, but a person like Jesus. We do have that eternity to grow more like Jesus.
I think that is a beautiful place to kind of put a bow on this episode. There's probably more places we could go, but
like we could do a whole part 2 of best paranormal romances and how they do it great. I sort of brought up one book I really loved, but even going back to Tolkien's Baron and Luthien, that's considered a paranormal romance. Got an elf and a human, and the craziness of...
You even throw a werewolf in there.
Yeah. I learned this. There's werewolves, vampires, all of it in the Silmarillion. I didn't expect I'd love the Silmarillion so much, so that perhaps needs to be a future conversation, or maybe it'll just work itself in naturally.
That sounds lovely. Well, thanks for coming along with us on this journey. I hope we didn't ramble too much, made some sense here and there. Hopefully. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.
And plugging one last thing, watch Hadestown if it's in your area. It's a great musical. All right, that's my plug.
All right.